From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Well, hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Wow Report, where we count down the top 10 things that make us go wow. And I'm Fenner Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder, here with James St. James, editor of the Wow Report, and of course Blake Jacobs, standing in for Tom Campbell, who's overseas.
Hello.
I don't think will we ever get Tom Campbell back on the show again?
You said the exact same thing last week.
I'll say it again next week, by God, until we get him back. I miss him. I miss his smiley little face.
Miss him too. He's working very hard. And of course, we have a very, very super duper special guest this week, Chris McKim.
Hi.
Chris is the director and producer of Wojnarowicz. I love saying the full title, Fuck You Faggot Fucker, which comes out on Kino Lorber today. Oh my God, today, March 19th. And it's being distributed by Kino Lorber, virtual cinema screenings at Film Forum. You can go to filmforum.org to get tickets. So let's straight in, number 10. Chris, it's you. You're it.
Number 10.
Chris,
oh my gosh.
Tell us a little bit about how you first found out about Wojnarowicz. Am I saying it right?
Wojnarowicz. That's right.
Yes.
Wojnarowicz.
When you first discovered him, and when you first began thinking of the idea of doing a documentary about him.
I first became aware of him in college, but I didn't know a lot about him. It wasn't until July 2017 when I sort of was like trying to figure out what I was doing with my life next. And it wasn't that long after the election that I sort of went down this wiki wormhole, and I realized that there was all this story about David, and there was all this amazing work, and there had never been a documentary about him. And at the time, there was a retrospective that was going to be coming up, the following July. So I reached out to PPOW, which is his final gallery, and they managed the estate. And I met with Wendy Olsoff and Tom Rofenbart, who headed the estate. And, so they got on board very quickly. And then I talked to Randy and Fenton, of course. And here we are many years later.
Now, the book, Fire in the Belly, which was his diaries, or just is it?
That's a biography by Cindy Carr, yes.
And it came out a few years before. Had you read the documentary? I mean, had you read the book, or were you?
I read the book after reaching out to the gallery, but then I read it sort of between then and when I went to New York a few months later to meet with Tom. And Wendy and Anita Vitale, who's also in the film.
I think we need to back up a little bit even further. And for the people who don't know who he is, just sort of explain his impact on the 80s and the 90s and what his art was and all that kind of stuff, because he's a fascinating character.
Well, David sort of was one of the early East Village I almost said East Village Cinema, one of the East Village artists in the early 80s. And, at the time, he was in a band called 3 Teens Go 4. And a lot of his work dealt with things of a political nature. David was known to be like this angry young man. And then over the course of the AIDS crisis, his work became a lot more pointed, where he had always been talking about injustices in this sort of broad way and the America's one tribe nation mentality and things like that. That over the course of the Reagan administration and of course the AIDS crisis, there were more specific targets to go after. And I think David took that opportunity to really sort of sharpen his message and try to make a difference.
James, not to carbon date you, but you were living in the East Village at the same time as David Wojnarowicz. Did you know him? Did you ever see 3 Teens Kill 4 performing?
I did see 3 Teens Kill 4. They performed at the World a couple times and Danceteria. And I was very much aware of him. He was very much a large presence in the East Village scene, Pyramid, Limbo Lounge, Wawa, King Tut's Wawa Hut, places like that. He worked. He was a journalist at East Village Eye, which I'm sure you remember, Fenton. And Carlo McCormick was also did art reviews and everything. And I think Carlo is in the documentary as well. So I knew of his crowd. I didn't really know him. I didn't know Peter Hujar, I guess, was his boyfriend, who is
a mentor, and they did have a thing for a brief moment. Yeah.
Right. I also think it's interesting that he was a very his different, he was a cinematographer, he was a poet, he was a journalist, he was he did art. Talk about some of just the different things that he did.
Well, that was such a great and complete list that you just gave. I mean, I think it was perfect. But yeah, David was self-taught. So, he always dabbled in all sorts of different medium and, used found objects, mostly because they couldn't afford anything to paint on. So he'd still like garbage cans or driftwood and, paint on old shopping signs and stuff like that. But as he sort of developed as an artist, he started incorporating more ideas, and like sort of each time that he was doing his next sort of like group of art, there was like this huge leap in difference because he was trying out new materials or different ideas, and he did quite a bit with collage, and he was also made short films with friends, and as well as writing.
Tell us about the title, where the full title, how that came about, where it comes from, the backstory, because there is a backstory, right?
Yeah. So he found this scrap of, sort of paper that had this little drawing of these two guys, one wearing a beret, and it said "ooh la la" over it, and he was getting sort of, I don't know what we can say here on Sirius.
I mean, you can say it all. You can say fuck.
So one was sort of fucking the other guy, and it said, faggot fucker on it. And so someone above that had written "fuck you." So it said "fuck you, faggot fucker." And David found this scrap of paper that he wanted to turn into art. So he, stuck it onto a painting that he had done with the two boys kissing in this sea of water. And there are photographs in each of the corners. Him and a friend, John Hall, in the old Christodora are in three corners, and then Brian Butterick, his Saint Sebastian, is in the bottom corner.
I love Brian.
And it's such a and who was it? Who was his gallery dealer? So you can't call a picture that, it's so offensive. And he was like, no, that's what the work is called, right?
Yeah, that's it. Fuck you, faggot fucker. That's the name. It's gonna stick.
And we were struggling for a while to think of the perfect. Remember, like there was like Tongues of Flame, and all those sort of documentary titles that were perfectly good, but nothing seemed to kind of just capture the sort
of who he was.
The very punk kind of, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then one day we were just in a meeting and like had enough. And was like, "Fuck you, faggot fucker." As a cover, I said, "Yes, that's the time." No, just kidding. But Fenton, of course, immediately was like, "That's it." And Randy was mildly apprehensive for a moment, but by the next morning, I think he was swayed.
Yes.
Now, do you think you would have enjoyed knowing him and being in the East Village scene at that time? Is that something that's always been in your head?
Me? I'm sorry. What?
Yeah. I mean, the whole East Village, scene back the art scene in the early '80s. Is that something that sort of has always attracted you?
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely was an interesting time. I learned so much more about it, but by sort of like being able to listen to David's audio, it was really, he had recorded all these tape journals from that time, so it was fun. Like, listening to, like,
you're really in his head.
Like, in fact, 40 years ago, this very night, he went to the Anvil, March 17th, 1980. He went to the Anvil for the first time.
Oh, the Anvil. Now, I have an Anvil story.
James, tell us about the Anvil.
I hope my stepmother isn't listening to this.
As one does.
The Anvil was an after-hours sex club that was very famous in the Maplethorpe sort of clique, and it was just a leather bar that I remember. I remember how I got tossed out of it many, many times because I had lip gloss on, or I was wearing heels or earrings, and you just were not those. I mean, they had a sign that said no Izod shirts, no khaki pants, no femme clothing. It was just jeans and leather only. Anyway, but we're a little off topic there.
I mean, the East Village scene, it was a thing, James, wasn't it? I mean, there were nightclubs, but there were also art galleries, and that was such
there was the fun
weird
gallery
thing.
life. There was all those things that were so much fun. In the Mary Boone gallery. I mean, really so much.
It had fabulous nights, Civilian Warfare, International with Monument, right? Gracie Mansion.
Gracie Mansion, yeah. And then there were all the clubs that were also like performance spaces, like I said, Limbo Lounge and stuff. And there were so many, the Mud Club and Studio 50 or Club 57. Yeah, I mean,
wasn't that before your time? I mean, hard to believe there was such a thing, but you were.
Girl, you were there 4 years before me. I don't know what this baiting is. You're 10 years older than me if you're a day. So I think we need to cut this line of commentary out.
I know you'll come for me later. So, well, so Wojnarowicz, Fuck You Faggot Fucker, premieres in theaters and video on demand today, and you can see it virtually at the Film Forum. Filmforum.org or at Kino Lorber's. It's distributed by Kino Lorber, right?
Yeah, kinomarquee.com.
And it's, if I do say so myself, I mean, Chris has made, it's a masterpiece, actually. The New Yorker said one of the best films of the decade, of the year.
Really? Wow.
Century. Yes. So this just came in from Alan Cumming. David Wojnarowicz is a lost legend, and this film achieves the rarest of feats by capturing the essence of a man using the aesthetic of his art. Bold, provocative, and unflinching. We owe him and this film a huge debt for the passion and the sacrifices he made. So check it out. All right, let's go on. Chris, stick around and chime in. We're going on to number 9.
Number 9.
We'll go from the 80s to the 90s here because I watched a really fascinating documentary, and we're staying in the documentary realm. I watched something on Hulu called Kid 90, and it was Soleil Moon Frye's memoir of partying in the 90s in Los Angeles and New York. Soleil Moon Frye was Punky Brewster. She was a child star in the 80s from 84 to 88. And then in the 90s, she moved on to like doing cartoon voiceover work and everything. But she was very much a party girl in the Los Angeles club scene. And she and the other teen stars of the time, Leonardo DiCaprio, Mark Paul Gosselaar, Brian Austin Green, all of the kids who were in town at the time, they were all at the Viper Room every night, and they were all getting high and drinking. And she was sort of a Nelson Sullivan type character. She had a video camera when nobody had that, and she videoed every minute of her day. And she has 10 years worth of these tapes of all these stars just fucked up out of their minds at clubs, at after hours party, going until 3 and 4 in the afternoon. And it's all, she lost her virginity to Charlie Sheen, and David Arquette is there, and Perry Farrell, all these people that are sort of emblematic of the period. So then in the mid 90s, she leaves LA and moves to New York and falls into the rave scene there, and starts hanging out with the kids from the movie Kids, the Larry Clark, Harmony Korine movie. And they all move into a big loft together, and she's filming all of that. So what you had, and then they all start to die off. There are, drugs and suicide, and it sort of takes a very dark turn. But what you have is this really just raw New York versus LA in the 90s party documentary. And as it moved on and it gets darker and darker, she's an adult looking back at all these tapes, and she starts to say, did I do enough? Did I recognize that, these people were troubled, and did I do anything enough to help them? And did I recognize the signs of drug addiction? And it becomes very introspective, and it goes from being just this raucous party doc to really, making some statements of nightlife. And it's you really should check it out. I knew her a little bit in New York in the Nassau club scene. But I didn't know that the things were as. I mean, of course, I knew things were as crazy as they got in the '90s. But it's just fascinating.
Does it have a happy ending or?
Well, she survives, and the other survivors, there, David Arquette and Brian Austin Green and all those people, is their take on what they all lived through. It's also a documentary about fame and young fame and how it can destroy people. And so it's not happy, but it's they're survivors, so they have a story to tell.
Chris, did you ever experience this scene? Because you have that poster of Gummo behind you. So Harmony Korine's a part of that kids scene, right?
Yeah, well, it was interesting. I've not actually seen the movie, but I did watch the trailer when I got the list this morning of the countdown. And I was excited I was surprised to see those Justin Pierce and Harold.
Yes. Harold lived in her closet. Harold was one of the skateboarder boys, and he lived in her closet for many months. And then she and Justin, I think, were boyfriends. I can't remember, but he committed suicide, I believe, or was it drug overdose?
Yeah, I think he was a suicide.
Yeah.
Sadly. Yeah, amazing. Punky Brewster. And she's coming back to Punky Brewster.
Yeah, it's already started, I believe. And it's getting good reviews. So
why did she make it now? Like, what made her decide to sort of like go back in time and go through all that?
Well, she talks about how she just had these, boxes and boxes and boxes of tapes, and she just started reviewing them. And she didn't, when she was showing it to people and everything, they didn't realize that it was going to be as sort of explicit as it ended up being, because everyone's just, I mean, you see them just getting high. I mean, it's like, it's shocking to see these people that so well just being messy, but she ended up thinking, this is the truth, and none of them are really angry with her, which is funny, because you would think that Leo might get a little irritated at this point in his career, but so she's still friends with all of them. It's just.
So that's Kid 90 is streaming on Hulu. Number 8.
Number 8.
I want to go back to a song that kind of, I know we all know this song, Somebody's Watching Me, Rockwell.
Yeah.
I always feel like somebody's watching me.
Written by Michael Jackson, right?
I don't think it was written by him, but he recorded the chorus. It's his vocals on the chorus. And I never really stopped to think. It came out in 84, which I guess is, 1984, Orwell's 1984. So it's this paranoid pop song about being surveyed and watched. Maybe that was the inspiration. But it's a weird song. And the artist is Rockwell, and I'd never heard of Rockwell. And he kind of performs in this sort of posh British sort of spoken word accent.
It's sort of like Nicki Minaj's Roman, when she talks in a faux British accent. No, nobody.
Yes, totally. But it's sort of so weird. And then anyway, I was just heard it on the radio last weekend. And I suddenly thought, why on earth did Michael Jackson record this with Rockwell? It wasn't like, a duet of great pop star. It wasn't Beyonce and Madonna doing a number. It was just like, who is Rockwell?
Well, but you got to remember that Michael did that with a lot of young stars, especially from his label, and he would give like Jennifer Holiday songs. I mean, he wrote so much music, and he gave, he was always, what you say what you will about him, but I mean, he did really give younger up and coming stars a leg up.
But there's a twist, actually, because Rockwell is Kennedy Gordy, the son of Berry Gordy.
There you go. Well, then that's yeah. I mean, that sort of makes sense then, doesn't it?
Well, yes, it does, but it makes no sense if you don't know. And like, I guess he chose Rockwell. Apparently, he chose Rockwell so that he could submit the record to Motown, and people weren't thinking it was nepotism. You know the song, Chris, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
Well, and you also have to remember too that this is right off of what's the Police song?
Don't stand so close to me.
Every little step, what is it?
Every breath you take.
Every breath you take. So I mean, there was a lot of stalking music going around at the time.
Right, it was a trend in but then and then it turns out that Rockwell, he says, I come home at night, I bolt the door real tight. People call me on the phone, I'm trying to avoid, but can people see me on TV or I'm just paranoid? When I'm in the shower, I'm afraid to wash my hair because I might open my eyes and find someone standing there.
Michael.
Yes.
Michael was probably standing there watching him shower.
Well, no, it was actually Rockwell used to like to surprise and scare an ex-girlfriend by creeping into the bathroom and pushing his face up against the shower while she was washing her hair.
So he gaslit her by writing it as his own experience in the song?
I don't know about that. That's scary. Yeah.
And then, because I posted a thing on Facebook saying, "What, WTF? Explain this to me." And then someone, Abramovitz, Seth said that he told this story. Seth pointed out this story, and it reminded me. Then, do you remember Centipede? Another weird
Centipede.
Michael Jackson wrote for Rebe Jackson, and in Centipede, the lyrics are, you came to strike him with your love, like you crawled into the bathroom window to bite him with your love, like a centipede that's hot, the fire is in your touch, just like a centipede, you've got a lot of love into touch. So it's obviously there's a connection. Or am I going completely QAnon? Yeah. Have I lost the plot? Like
it's like a centipede that pushes its face up against the shower curtain. So what is Rockwell doing now? Do we know?
I know that Sharon Needles did a cover of Somebody's Watching Me. So but and then someone else said, well, what about Muscle for Diana Ross? He wrote Muscle for Diana Ross.
I mean, it'd be because he did do. I mean, like there's all sorts. I can't right off the top of my head, but there were all sorts of other young stars at the time that he was always writing. Like Prince was giving songs to the Bangles, and like everybody just sort of gave everybody songs that they weren't going to record themselves.
Yeah. Prince had Sugar Walls, right? Thing and yeah.
Sheila E.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, obviously, I'm going nowhere with this, and you're very like nonplussed. So we'll just move on. T.S. Madison Experience, starring T.S. Madison, weekly Thursdays, 10 p.m. on WeTV. And we'll take a break. Have you got a question, Blake?
I do. Today is this person's birthday, and in October 2017. Tom Hanks told the BBC that his name will become a noun and a verb. It will become an identifying moniker for a state of being for which there was a before and an after. Who's the person?
Goodness.
We'll have the answer for you right after the break on the Wow Report on Radio Andy.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
All right, welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with James St. James and Blake and our special guest, Chris McKim, director and producer of Wojnarowicz, which opens today. Get your tickets at Film Forum and you can watch it virtually or at Kino Lorber Marquee. Is that right? That's right, Chris, right?
Kinomarquee.com.
Kinomarquee.com. Right. Blake, you had a question for us before the break?
Yes. Tom Hanks told the BBC that this person's name will become a noun and a verb. It will become an identifying moniker for a state of being for which there was a before and an after. Who did Tom Hanks say that about?
I'm going to say Tom Holland, and you're Hollanding if you're really hot, and you're a Hollander if you
aren't.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. This is a very strange question. Any other choice? Any other guesses?
Chris, you got a guess?
Peter Scolari.
Oh, okay.
Fenton.
I have no idea.
Who has Tom Hanks worked with lately? I can't even think of a Tom Hanks movie other than that cowboy thing he just did.
Well, it's Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, you've been Weinsteined. Yes.
Well, Chris, you worked at the Harvey Weinstein. You worked at Miramax, right?
Number 7.
Yes, sir. Yeah, for some years in New York and LA.
Tell us everything now.
It was crazy and insane. I hit Harvey once in the head with a door. I was very, very scared.
Did you know him? Did you have interactions with him frequently?
Only when I hit him in the head at the door.
How did that come about?
I was running at the time. I sort of coordinating dailies on all the Miramax and the Dimension projects. So I was pulling like selects for all the films as they were coming in. And Copland was shooting that gem with Sylvester Stallone and Robert De Niro and whoever else was shooting, and I was running dailies down to their offices, and like he and Bob shared this kind of little suite that had doors on either side and their assistants. So I like just opened the door and he was sitting down his briefcase right there and bent over and went ahead and he stood up and roared like a big bear and went back to his office. And I was like, oh.
So he didn't sort of persecute you thereafter. It was just a moment.
He dashed off and I looked like I was ready to pass out. And his assistant was like, it's okay.
Fenton, that's like your Robert Maxwell story.
Yes, that was the most terrifying moment of my life.
What is your Robert Maxwell story?
Very briefly, I went to see him in, I think it was called Headington Hall. He had this sort of manor just outside of Oxford. And I was running the university magazine and we were desperate for money. And we thought, what a great idea to go to Robert Maxwell. He was a mega baron publisher, the young Murdoch of his day. So we went to him to ask for money. And he was in this sort of, this is a psychological technique, huge room with an enormously long table. And he sat all the way at the end. So you had to sort of walk, you had to get to him, sort of classic sort of intimidation thing. But halfway along was this pile of files just perched on the edge of a table. And as I walked by, it fell to the floor. And immediately I just bent down to pick them all up. And he was like, leave it. And I carried on picking them up and he said, leave it. And then he really yelled. And I think I peed my pants. He didn't put any money into the magazine. So. But then he felt
a giant piss stain on his Albasan rug. On his $100 million Persian carpet.
Well, it wasn't a full flood. It was just a little dribble. So. All right, let's go on to number 6 then.
Number 6.
James.
Number 6 is this. We're revisiting a story that I think we talked about before, but I'm not. It might have just been on the WoW report, where there was last December a Kazakhstani bodybuilder married. His name was Yuri Tolachko, and he married a sex doll named Margot that they'd been dating for a number of years. They met in a nightclub, and they had this big love affair. He married this sex doll, and according to Kazakhstan law, as long as the two people are male and female and over 18, that doesn't say whether they have to be alive or not, or human or not, and so the marriage was legal in Kazakhstan. Well, we thought that was the end of the story and that they would live happily ever after. Well, no, it turns out that Margot had some technical problems and had to be sent off for repairs. And while she was being repaired, Yuri was struggling with his loneliness and had sex with another sex doll and cheated on Margot. And he ended up divorcing Margot and marrying this other sex doll named Lola. Well, this other sex doll named Lola was a little different than Margot. Margot was very voluptuous and beautiful and just a typical sex doll. Well, Lola has the body of a chicken and the head of a woman, and her navel you can use as a vagina. So she's very just very different, but apparently they're very happy together now. And he now has this sort of chicken robot fetish. And he sort of writes about how sad he is the divorce. He's not ready to talk about the divorce from Margot, but he's very happy now with Lola, and he thinks that there's no reason why he can't have a whole harem of robot sex doll wives. So I have the story in the WoW report, and we link to his Instagram page where he has his new wife with the body of a chicken, and he's simulating sex with her, and you can sort of see it's very graphic and fascinating, but it's just a story that we like to follow up on these great love affair stories that we have.
So he broke the internet now instead of Kim Kardashian.
Yeah.
Him and la 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 Lola.
So Lola, the chicken person thing, like is the chicken human-sized chicken or just a
Yeah.
chicken-sized chicken?
No, she's human sized, and she's just sort of just chicken shaped. Or like the body is sort of like chicken shaped, like it's sort of like light bulb shaped, maybe.
Are there
Like-
feathers?
What?
Are there feathers?
No feathers. She's got plastic skin.
So you're
Um,
saying she's pear shaped?
Sort of, yeah, with a human head and then of navel vagina.
I guess it's something you have to see, really.
I did a poor job of explaining this.
Yeah. So what does she have between me down there if the navel is the?
I think it's just she just has another hole that for pleasure.
Oh my gosh.
Where
So
are they
we got
registered?
Elvis or
What? In fact, I do remember. We can't. I'm not going to. But there is a whole navel fetish with people of large sizes, that their navels are very deep and that you can get in there. Don't know if I'm giving. Do you know what I'm talking about here?
Yeah. Well, where are they registered?
The restoration. What is it? The
Restoration Hardware.
Restoration Hardware, Kazakhstan.
Well, what happened to the other one? Is she like lost now? The one who was
she went away
repaired?
for repairs, and then apparently he just decided that she was probably going to be breaking down all the time, and I think he just sort of got rid of her.
All right. James, I don't know how to wrap that up, but because I thought at number 6 we were going to talk about Ryan Gosling. So I tell you what, why don't you do it as number 5?
Number 5.
Okay. Over the weekend, I watched Lars and the Real Girl. Speaking of there is a thread there. This is a total thread. Lars and the Real Girl, where Ryan Gosling is sort of a simple boy who falls in love with a mannequin. I knew I was going to be able to tie this all up in a ribbon. And it's a really beautiful movie. I don't know if it's like from 2015, something like that. It's an older movie, but afterwards I then went back and watched Blue Valentine, which is Ryan Gosling, and it's just a relentlessly grim story about a breakup. And then I did Half Nelson, where he is the junkie teacher, the school teacher, and each of those roles are so different, and he's so amazing in each of them. And I just started thinking about Ryan Gosling and what an amazing actor he is, and how, he started at the Mickey Mouse Club with Justin and Brittany. And then he had his big breakout in The Notebook, and that sort of gave him the opportunity to just sort of take on all these different roles. Yeah.
Lars and the Real Girl was actually 2007. So that may have been one of his big breaks.
Maybe he did a lot. He was very prolific for a long time, and then he did La La Land, and he was just, lambasted for it. People hated him because they said that he was, a white man who was going to save jazz, and it was very racist. And there was a big controversy about it when he win the Oscar? Emma did, I remember.
I don't remember if he won or not.
But and then his girlfriend Ava Mendes gave birth, or his wife, I can't remember. And he said that he was going to step away from the industry for a while, and he really has stepped away. And I'm just thinking, just a shame that we let him go away, because he was like the best star on the planet, and he was so handsome and so wonderful, and we just let him slip away. And by God, why would we let Ryan Gosling slip away?
Has he really gone away, or is he just taking a break?
Well, he says he's taking a break, but I don't think he's ever coming back.
Well, I think he may be making a comeback, because I'm here on Wikipedia right now, and it says in 2021, currently filming The Gray Man, where he plays the role of Court Gentry. And then there's also The Wolf Man that's in development. That's TBA.
Well, I don't know, because it wasn't Paramount or Universal. Were they going to revive all their, like after The Mummy, they were going to do The Wolfman, and they were going to do all their monsters again. But because The Mummy was so awful, they canceled all of them.
Okay, so maybe that's what he's connected to that somehow. That's interesting.
I think that he's like a great Gary Cooper, Steve McQueen type of movie star, and I just am fascinated with him, and so I just wanted to give a shout out to Ryan Gosling.
Well, I have a really good story to continue your theme of real man
robots, dolls.
robot, whatever, when we come back from break.
Well, let's go to the break. Are you going to ask us a question as well?
I am going to ask you a question. So St. Patrick's Day was on Wednesday, and even though it's a big drinking day now, St. Patty's Day used to be a dry holiday up until what decade? So how long do you think it's been like a party Cinco de Mayo celebratory holiday?
All right. It's a really good question. You're listening to the Wow Report on Radio Andy, and we'll be right back after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
All right, welcome back. I'm here with Chris McKim, director and producer of Wojnarowicz. Opens today at Film Forum. And James St. James, of course. And Blake, you had a question for us.
Yes, this past Wednesday was St. Patrick's Day. So it's now a big drinking day, but St. Patty's used to be a dry religious holiday up until what decade?
Well, it must be this century. I mean, the 20th, the 1900s, because otherwise you wouldn't have said decade. Can't be like the 13th or 14th century. So,
Well,
What do
I
you
would
think?
probably say the 40s or maybe the 50s. I don't
Good
know.
guess.
Okay.
I'll go with the 70s.
You're right. It was only until the 70s.
What happened in the 70s?
I don't know. I guess it used to just be like a Catholic holiday for the day that St. Patrick passed away, but somehow it turned into, in fact, the first St. Patrick's Day parade wasn't even in Ireland. It was in the United States. I
It would
believe
probably be in New York, probably.
I believe
yeah.
in New York. And last year was the first year in 250 years that the New York St. Patrick's Day parade was canceled because of COVID.
Huh.
So
So
there
they
you go.
didn't drink for 250 years, and all those times they were doing the parade, they were sober.
Oh, I guess so.
Well, I mean, I do remember the green beer thing in the 70s. So,
Well,
I mean,
they still do that now in Chicago.
yeah, they they make the river green. They put the food dye in it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like the Corps of Engineers or someone that does it.
And St. Patrick was a 5th century missionary in Ireland.
Who famously chased the snakes out of Ireland.
Oh,
That's what he was famous for. There were snakes in Ireland until he got rid of them all.
I hate snakes.
He had his staff and he walked around pounding the earth with the staff, and the snakes all followed him out of the country.
Apparently, when he was 16, he was captured by Irish pirates from his home and taken as a slave.
Interesting.
Mm. All right.
I think there needs to be a St. Patty doc.
Maybe so.
Chris, not biting.
St. Patty, fuck you, faggot fucker.
Let's carry on with the countdown. We've reached number 4.
Number 4.
Have you guys ever heard of Poppy Z. Brite, an author?
Yes.
I
I
love
love Poppy Z. Brite. I didn't know that Poppy was a transgendered man until I was studying up for this story. I first heard of him in high school because I read Courtney Love's The Real Story. I was obsessed with Courtney Love in high school, and this was her unofficial biography, the unauthorized one. But Poppy acknowledged that the work was done at Love's suggestion and with her cooperation, including access to her, Courtney's journals and all. Anyway, Poppy also wrote one of my favorite novels of all time. It's called Exquisite Corpse.
Yeah.
Exquisite Corpse is a necrophiliac, cannibalistic, serial killer love story that explores the steamy politics of victimhood and disease. You got it?
Yeah.
We're back on track at the Wow Report with our usual go-to themes of cannibalism, necrophilia.
Well, yeah. And in 95, her team at Delacorte didn't want to publish it, but I guess Simon & Schuster came into the rescue. Anyway, the novel unfolds in alternating chapters from the points of view of 4 main characters. The first one is a serial killer named Andrew Compton, who is based off the serial killer Dennis Andrew Nilsen. Do you know him, Fenton? He was
him, yeah.
a Scottish serial killer and necrophile from 78 to 83. His character's based on him, and he's in prison and he fakes his own death by like slowing down his breath and escapes from prison, comes to the States, goes to New Orleans, meets another serial killer whose name is Jay, and Jay is modeled after Jeffrey Dahmer. So those two fall in love and have like a romance. And then there is a writer, Lucas, who's the third person. He is struggling because he just found out he's HIV positive, and he's mixed up with a little it's a gay Asian kid named Tran, who also lives on the outskirts of New Orleans. And Tran also has a relationship with Jay, the Jeffrey Dahmer character. It's the only thing that's ever made me like literally scared to like turn the lights on in my adult life. But I highly suggest this book. It's called Exquisite Corpse.
Now, what has Poppy been doing lately? Because I remember Poppy was also an East Village sort of character. Was he? Or was he always West Coast?
I think he's kind of retired from writing. In fact, it said, I think he's kind of retired from writing for now.
But he was very much part of the what was the
Brat Pack?
No. It was a literary genre of the early '90s, cyberpunk. Like he was a sort of a leading cyberpunk writer.
Oh, really? I mean, I've looked into reading his other novels, and they don't look as appealing to me as the necrophiliac, cannibalistic serial killing love story. But maybe that's just me.
The slowing down the heart thing, I think, was used in. Isn't that how in Hannibal Lecter he escaped?
Maybe.
I have a feeling in one of those novels, and I think it's a sort of based on a true. Yeah,
it may be, but yeah, this guy he studied it and learned. That's all like the first long chapters you read about him practicing this for ages, and then he finally gets it, and they're willing him to a room to do a autopsy, and he comes alive and kills both of them, steals their clothes, and escapes the hospital.
That is Hannibal Lecter. That is what Hannibal Lecter did.
Sort of. It's sort of like that. Yeah.
I guess it's not going to be made into a movie anytime soon.
Well, I was hoping so. He has often stated that while he will allow some of the work to be optioned for film under the right circumstances, he has little interest in movies and is not overly eager to see his work filmed. So,
challenge.
All right, let's move on to number 3.
Number 3.
I wanted to talk. Farting celebrities were in the news this week. I don't know. We're going to talk a little bit about the Grammys in a second, but Cardi B very audibly farted during her performance of WAP.
I watched that and I didn't see it.
Well, I don't know whether your volume was up high enough, because when she and Megan Thee Stallion were scissoring, there was a very audible pop as she farted. Also, this week, Wendy Williams is the burp fart combo heard around the world, where she simultaneously burped and farted while she was giving her opening monologue, and she just sort of said "oops" and went on with it about as if there was nothing.
I did see that, and I've also heard that if you fart, sneeze, and burp at the same time, you'll explode. So wouldn't that have been good TV?
That sort of sounds like an urban legend that teenagers tell themselves.
How you doing?
There's also something else that happened this week that was sort of interesting, because Drew Barrymore was spotted in New York City, and she was walking around barefoot. And when you think about New York City and the glass shards and the urine puddles and the tetanus and
rats,
it was 37 degrees, and she's out there and her feet are just black and filthy and just crusty. And you just think, she's always been a hippie, but what is that?
When
It's
I picture
insane.
hippie, I picture barefoot like on earth, not like on concrete with bump
Yeah.
dust stains.
Yeah, like roaming in a meadow or something like that. She was still wearing a mask, so she apparently cares about her health. But I mean, how much? I mean, like just one cut and you're gonna be in the hospital. Just anyway. So crazy celebrities, I guess, is my number 3.
Burping and farting TV show hosts,
Mm.
daytime TV talk show hosts.
But we'll be keeping an eye out on that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's some sort of breakdown happening with Drew because that's not normal behavior, and she looks a little bedraggled too. So,
Is that her show's still on air, right?
yeah, and she's I mean, she's Drew, and we love her, but
in the Golden Girls, Dorothy and the Golden Girls
sure.
would do one woman shows, and she would always appear barefoot. She'd always perform barefoot.
You mean B. Arthur?
B. Arthur, yeah. She'd
Oh.
always perform barefoot.
Well,
Huh.
I
But that's
mean,
different on stage to on the streets of New York City.
I went through a phase in the 90s where I was barefoot all the time at the clubs. And I remember I had to stop because there were so many broken glasses on the floor. And I would always come home and my feet would just be in ribbons. It was just terrible.
This is a very Rabelaisian part of the show, isn't it? Like cannibalism and farting. And I'm going to keep it in the same theme at number 2.
Number 2.
Burger King's old moldy burger ad. Have you seen this? The moldy Whopper?
No.
A few weeks ago, they released an ad for a Whopper, and the hook of it is they've taken all the preservatives out of the Whopper. So they set up a stop motion control time lapse, thank you, and time lapsed a burger over 34 days, and you see it just sagging and going moldy.
Because like McDonald's,
I was going to say
famously leave it.
famously.
It's brilliant kind of counter whatever the word is, counter messaging, because you immediately think of all the preservatives in the McDonald's and the fact that the Big Mac will last for centuries, without a blemish. And this thing is really
good.
moldy and gross and ugly. And it's they in a news release they said that mold can be a beautiful thing, and actually the pictures are. I mean, it is kind of compellingly, weirdly stunning. Although apparently over 26, perhaps not surprisingly, 26% of viewers of the ad were actively turned off to purchasing Burger King. So I don't know.
They also had another little advertising mess up recently, right? It was on International Women's Day. They were like, a woman's place is in the kitchen, but it was because they were giving away a scholarship for a female chef.
Yeah, the messaging was. But if you think about Burger King ads through the decades, when all those times with the Burger King and how spooky and scary he was, and how that scared off children for years from going to Burger King. Remember, he would always like show up in people's bedrooms and in closets and
the king.
With that weird creepy plastic head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a big blunder, and they stuck with that one for 10 years.
Maybe that was inspired by Rockwell's Somebody Watching Me.
And it all once again comes back in a bow.
The genius of this show is amazing. Let's take a break and congratulate ourselves. And when we come back, we'll reveal the number 1 thing this week that made us go, wow.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hey, welcome back to the Wow Report. We've been counting down the top 10 things that make us go, wow. It's been really gross. We're very lucky, though, to have Chris McKim as our special guest, producer and director of Wojnarowicz, Fuck You Faggot Fucker, which is, though I said myself, a fantastic documentary opening today. Go see it virtually at Film Forum. Distributed by Kino Lorber. All right, so what is the number 1 thing this week?
Number 1.
Well, I think we need to talk about the Grammys because even though it's been almost a week, it was the lowest rated Grammys, I think, in their history. And what did everyone think about it?
Well, I'll have to be honest. I only always just go and watch the performances. So I can only attest to that. But I saw a post where people actually enjoyed the way that the Grammys were set up this year. So did you
Did
not
you
watch
watch
it?
it? Chris, what did you watch?
Did you watch
Oh,
it?
I didn't know. I actually didn't see it. So I did see some clips afterwards, but I didn't actually see the performance.
You know, I just don't understand the whole point of award shows anymore. I feel like it's too self-congratulatory. I think the red carpet culture is over. I think when Joan died, it died. I don't understand it. And it's especially during coronavirus, during the pandemic, when nobody can be together. There was a pre-show on E, and it consisted of all these people standing on a red carpet talking to TV sets. Like, what is the point? Like, that isn't a red card. Like, they're talking to people on TV sets. It just makes no sense. It's pointless. And the whole idea, I don't know. What did you think, Fenton?
I thought it was much, much better than the Golden Globes, which was perhaps the worst remote experience I've ever had in my life.
Keep going.
I've never seen. I somehow have been sort of under a virginal rock, or so. I'd never seen or really heard WAP before. Like, I just totally missed it. Like some sort of cultural blind spot. I just totally missed it. So I thought that was the most amazing performance I've ever seen on TV, network TV ever. I mean, not since Madonna's Vogue in the sort of Mary Antoinette thing. It was so shocking. And
or
just
like a virgin where she was rolling around on the ground. I mean,
but this with the giant, with the stripper's pole that is the heel of a giant shoe, and the platform is a Perspex thing, and there's money blowing around inside it, and then there's someone gyrating, and they're ripping off bits of their scanty clothing to be. I mean, I was just a jaw on the floor. I was like,
it's a genius song, and they're both so fantastic.
Well, did you see Cardi got into it with Candace Owens over the performance?
I did see that. Yeah,
it's great.
And I just want to add a little trivial detail. You know who directed and conceived that? It was the Square Division, the guys who choreographed Britney's residency in Vegas.
Oh.
Lovely couple of guys, and just visual geniuses. Is geniuses or genii? Genii. Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to watch it because my TV was dying over the weekend, and I think I told you, Fenton, how it had the horizontal line with the purple line shooting through it, and so I wasn't able to see anything. I was only able to listen. So
I didn't see Harry Styles.
James, that was the visual concept of the show.
Yeah, and I didn't see Harry Styles perform either, which really is sad because you know how I love me some Harry.
What other performances were there at the Grammys this year? I saw Dua Lipa, but that looked kind of boring.
I don't know, but I mean, are you going to watch the Oscars? I mean, what is even the point anymore of any of this? Am I just being bitter and old? I don't know. I don't get it.
Chris, is James being bitter?
James?
Anyway, so there we go. That's our Grammy coverage.
You will watch the Oscars because we always need a number one, and it's always an award show.
It's true. It's true.
Well, that's all we got time for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. You can catch previous episodes on the Sirius app or on our YouTube channel, Wow Presents. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
We love you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Blake. Same time, same place next week. Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go, wow.